Diane Carpenter.
Now, Ms. Carpenter, do you wish to take the oath or the affirmation?
Affirmation, thank you.
Could you repeat after me, please? I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give in this Royal Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. If you just take a seat where you are, please.
Mrs. Carpenter, did you provide a statement to the Royal Commission dated the 4th of March 2015?
Yes, I did.
And have you had an opportunity to read and review that statement before coming to court to give evidence?
Yes, I have.
And is that an accurate statement?
It is.
I tender Mrs. Carpenter's statement of the 4th of March 2015.
Exhibit 26.5.
I understand that you would like to read your statement to the public hearing.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Can I ask that you do that now?
My name is Diane Carpenter. I'm known to the Royal Commission. Oh, hang on. I just start at one, do I? This statement made by me accurately sets out the evidence that I am prepared to give to the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse. The statement is true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. Sorry. In preparing this statement, I have been shown certain documents relating to my abuse at St Joseph's Orphanage, Neerkol. Where I refer to a document in this statement, I have used the document reference number, which appears in the top right-hand corner of the document to which I refer. I have not independently reviewed the St Joseph's Orphanage Neerkol documents from which these documents have been drawn. This statement has been prepared on the basis that the Commission will issue a notice to produce under Royal Commission Act 1902 for the production of a signed copy. My background is I was born in Emerald, Queensland. I am 62 years of age. My maiden name is Jones. I have 3 children. One of whom is deceased. Statement of the matter. Oh, okay. Mother Audrey Jones suffered from manic depression. When I was 3 or 4 years old, I was placed in St Joseph's Orphanage, Neerkol. I lived there for 1 year and then returned to my family home. When I was 7 or 8 years old, my father died. I was then placed back into Neerkol with the rest of my brothers and sister, at which time we were made wards of the state. I was released from Neerkol when I was 17 years old and remained a ward of the state until I was 18 years old. My 5 siblings and I were not allowed to mix at Neerkol, and so I didn't grow up with them. I feel like I don't know what family is, which saddens me a lot. I also had a 6th sibling, but he was given away at birth. I never knew him. When I first went to Neerkol, I was a part of the nursery. When I turned 5, I became part of the small girls' dormitory. Sister Vinton was responsible for us. When I returned at the age of 8 years old, I lived in the small girls' dormitory until I turned 10 years old, where I was moved to the big girls' dormitory. At the end of year 8, when I was about 14 years of age, I was taken out of school and put to work in the refectory serving the nuns meals, washing up and other housekeeping work. Not long after, I was sent to work on a farm in Emerald. I'll have a drink of water, thanks. During the first period when I lived in Neerkol, I experienced a number of episodes, harsh treatments and physical abuse. For example, we were required to take an afternoon nap in the nursery. I was generally too afraid to sleep during this time, as I had observed other children being kicked in their sleep. Once I couldn't help but fall asleep and was kicked very hard and picked up and shaken. This terrified me. This was typical of the arbitrary punishment that we lived with. Physical abuse came out of nowhere in reprisal for us doing no, we're wrong. I felt as if anything we did would be met with physical punishment. One time, Sister assumed to grab me by the hair without warning and for no reason. Beatings were by punishing, shaking or being belted with a stick or a leather strap, and it was on the bare bottom. On one occasion, I was locked in an extremely hot room and was forced to drink my own urine to stay hydrated. Another time I ran away from the orphanage, and when I returned, I was told by Sister Frances Regis to name the person who helped me escape. She said that if I told the truth, I wouldn't be harmed. I didn't believe her, and so I didn't tell her. Sister Regis told me to remove my pants, which I didn't want to do, as Kevin Baker was also present. Kevin Baker pulled down my pants, threw me over the bed and belted me with a cane on my bare bottom. Sister Regis and Kevin Baker were laughing as this took place. The episode was extremely humiliating and distressing. On a number of occasions, I had issues that required medical attention but not provided with. I broke my collarbone one night and was not taken to hospital until the following afternoon. When I was a small girl, I had a sore that went untreated for 6 months. During the time I was at Neerkol, I was regularly shamed publicly for being stupid. It was common for me to hear words to the effect of, "You Joneses are no good," by the nuns. This made me feel really terrible about myself. There was also one occasion when I was about 12 or 13 years old where I woke up having wet the bed. As a punishment, Sister Frances Regis made me stand in front of all the other girls while she put a nappy on me. She told me that I could not take it off even though I had to do exercises. It was incredibly humiliating and embarrassing. While I lived at Neerkol, I suffered repeated sexual abuse from Father Michael Hayes, who was a priest who specially looked after the Aboriginal children. The first time I was abused was around 4 months after my father died. I went to visit Father Hayes at the presbytery opposite the Catholic Church in Rockhampton because, naturally, I was feeling upset and missing my father. I knew Father Hayes because he used to deal a lot with the Opal kids. Being the children in the area who were of Aboriginal heritage, I went to see him because the Catholic Church was the main authority for pastoral issues and religion was a big part of people's lives. While I was there, Father Hayes penetrated my vagina with his finger. Father Daly entered the room and saw what Father Hayes was doing to me. From time to time, Father Hayes was visited at Neerkol. He would frequently touch the Aboriginal girls. For example, I went back to Neerkol when Father Hayes was visiting. He would put his hands up my blouse and fondle my breasts. In the holidays, the nuns would billet the kids out to nearby farms. When I was 13 years old, I was billeted with my brother. I don't say the name, do I? Do I say my brother's names? No, okay. And to a place in Claremont where I was sexually abused by the son of the property owner. Sometime later, I was taken by the nuns to see the inspector for the State Children's Department, Mr. O'Connor, in his office in Rockhampton. I reported what happened at the farm to him. On my return to Neerkol, I was beaten by the nuns for mentioning it to him. I also witnessed the sexual abuse of other children. Once I saw Kevin Baker sodomising a boy, whose name I've given, but while also abusing the other boy in the bakehouse. I remember being physically ill after this episode. I believe all my siblings were sexually abused while in care at Neerkol. After we left Neerkol, my brother, who I was very close to, told me he was sexually abused by Tom Paddle. He attempted suicide a number of times, which I believe was related to the abuse he suffered. My brother died in 2008 after a short battle with cancer. My first disclosure of abuse, I was visited by a policeman in our family home after my assault by Father Hayes. I knew the police officer as he had visited us before and been very friendly. I told him that Father Hayes did rude things to me. When he heard this, he put an end to the conversation and he never visited us again. When I was taken out of school to work at Emerald, I spoke to a doctor there about what happened to me at Neerkol. He said, "Have you spoken to somebody about this?" I said, "Yes," but I was punished for it. The doctor wanted to report it, but I told him not to because I was afraid of what would happen to me if he did. During my time at Neerkol, I never believed that I could speak up to the State Children's Department about anything that happened to me or anyone else, because the result would be that the department would report it to the nuns, which would lead to the nuns beating me. When I was about 17, I had started working as a nurse and I decided to report what Father Hayes had done to me to the police. This was difficult for me as I had already had difficulty trusting police. I attended a police station in Mackay where I was living and spoke to a constable there. He told me I had to go to the courthouse with this complaint and it had nothing to do with the police. This experience further eroded my trust in police and authorities. I felt as though no one in a position of power would help or support me. In or around 1973 to 74, I worked as a nurse at the Noosa Hospital. I felt as though I needed to discuss some of the issues I was having. One day I spoke to a counsellor in Taunton or Noosa, I can't recall where, and told her about my time at Neerkol, including the physical, emotional and sexual abuse I suffered there. Her response was to me was, "That happened many years ago, so get over it." I was extremely upset and confused by this response. I had trusted this person to listen to my story and to help me. After that experience, I didn't want to talk to anyone about it again, and I didn't until 1998. Reporting the abuse to the police. Around the time of the court inquiry, somebody told me that Father Hayes was still working with children. I approached the police to make a complaint and was put in touch with Detective David Danslow, who was working in Task Force Argus. In or about 1998, I gave a statement to Detective Danslow regarding my sexual abuse by Father Hayes. The process made me very uncomfortable, despite his best effort to make me comfortable. I understand that he needed a lot of detail about the abuse I suffered and was willing to help. However, I would have been much more comfortable being interviewed by a woman. I told Detective Danslow that I was aware of another Aboriginal woman who had been sexually abused by Father Hayes. I have been told that she has borne a child as a result of the assault. Detective Danslow said he wanted to bring charges against Father Hayes. He said it would be better if we had two people who could give evidence. I have been shown a document that indicates that at the time I sought to withdraw my complaint, my son had passed away around the time that I made my police statement. And I think this is the reason why I did not wish to proceed. I just had too much stuff going on. In November 2013, I was informed by Detective Danslow that Father Hayes had died, and I feel I have missed the opportunity to see him punished for the crimes he committed. I was a member of the Neerkol Action Support Group. The group instructed lawyers to commence civil proceedings in relation to the injuries the group members had individually sustained while living at Neerkol. I don't remember anything about the proceedings that came about and was not directly involved in bringing them about. I received a settlement amount of $10,000 from these proceedings. I don't understand the legal system or the circumstances that lead to making of this offer. Queensland Redress Scheme. In May 2008, I applied to the Queensland Government Redress Scheme for compensation for the sexual and physical abuse I suffered while living at Neerkol. I received both a Level 1 and Level 2 payment. However, I do not remember receiving the Level 1 payment. Before I could receive the payment, I remember that I had to sign a deed of release and indemnity. On or about the 20th of February 2009, I received a letter from Lindy Nelson-Carr MP, the Minister for Communities, saying that arrangements had been made for payment of $7,000 to me with respect to my application of redress. The letter said the making of the payment was consistent with the sentiments expressed in the statement of apology offered by the government and the heads of churches following the Ford inquiry. Acknowledge the previous failures to protect children in care and express deep sorrow and regret. The children at Neerkol were extremely vulnerable. We were kept 15 miles out of Rockhampton, away from any oversight. They could do whatever they wanted with us out there. The abuse I suffered at Neerkol had a very significant impact on my life. Since then, I have had a great difficulty trusting people, particularly people in authority, in addition to not trusting the nuns and priests. Neerkol kids didn't trust one another. I have also had ongoing health issues which I attribute to my time in Neerkol. I feel as though, through the Royal Commission, that I am finally being heard after this process has taken me over 20 years. I remain very angry about what happened to me. I realise I can't change history, but want to prevent similar things happening in the future. Children desperately need to be protected. Oh, God.
Mrs. Carpenter, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions.
That's fine.
Firstly, can I ask you about paragraph 29 of your statement? That relates to the first time you went to the police about Father Michael Hayes.
Yeah.
And you say at paragraph 29 that you're about 17.
Yes,
And that would place it in the late 1960s, early 1970s?
that's correct.
And that you decided at that time, after having started work as a nurse, to report what Father Hayes had done to you to the police?
I did.
And that you attended a police station in Mackay?
I did.
Can you recall, in any more detail than what's in your statement, what you said to the police officer you spoke with?
I said, he was just on the desk, you know, like when you go in. And I said, I want to talk to somebody about child sexual abuse case. I didn't say it was me at the time.
And how did that person respond to you?
I can't recall exactly what he said, but I think he asked if it was somebody I knew, and I said yes. But I didn't say it was me, not at that stage.
And what advice or directions were you given at that time?
Well, I was told to go to the courthouse. You know, like he said, if there's... I think he said something like, you know, they don't deal with it there, like, that I'd have to go to the courthouse and report it.
And was there a police station attached to the courthouse in Mackay?
I think so, yeah.
And did you do that? Did you go to the courthouse?
No, because I thought, well, the police should be the first port of call, you know, if you've got trouble or something, you know, you go to them, you know, and then if they direct you to the courthouse, then they must know what they're doing.
And did the person at the police station that you spoke with, did they tell you who to speak with at the courthouse?
No, they just said to go to the courthouse.
And
I just figured that there'd be somebody on the desk like there was at the police station.
And just can you say in your own words or your own, with the best of your recollection, what stopped you from doing that?
Trust. I didn't trust him after that. I just thought, well, the policeman should have taken my statement or did something, you know. I just thought that, yeah, instead of sending me just off somewhere.
Can I now ask you about Mr. Kevin Baker? You say at paragraph you say at paragraph 14 of your statement that there was an occasion where you were physically assaulted by Kevin Baker.
That was when I ran away, yeah. And
you also speak at paragraph 24 of having witnessed certain acts by Kevin
That is
Baker.
correct.
In the late 1990s, so when you were involved with the Neerkol Action Support Group,
Yes.
were you aware of any criminal proceedings in respect of Mr. Baker?
No, because I was I was actually working up in Mornington Island in the Gulf as a coordinator for the women's shelter. So I was not aware of what was going on down wherever it went down, here or Brisbane or...
And were you ever approached by the police in respect of Mr. Baker and any
never.
proceedings? So you were completely unaware of those criminal proceedings?
Because the island's quite isolated, so I don't know if you've been to Mornington Island.
No, I haven't. All right. Thank you. I had no other questions.
Ms. Coogan.
No questions.
Anyone? Yes, Mr. Kent.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter, can I just ask you, please, to have a look at paragraph 28 of your statement? Have you got that there? That's how you describe your belief that you couldn't speak up to the State Children's Department at the time. Can I just ask you what degree of contact you had with the State Children's Department people? Did they visit Neerkol? Or?
I heard they visited Neerkol, but I only went in to see Mr. O'Connor in the office one time. But yeah, I'd heard they'd visited, but I didn't speak to them out at Neerkol.
So your contact with them really was minimal?
Yes.
You might have spoken to Mr. O'Connor once?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'll allow Mr. Lawler to go last, Mr. Callaghan. So if you have questions of this witness, you can proceed.
You have said some things in your statement about Mr. Kevin Baker.
I have.
If you just introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, my name's Callaghan and I appear for Mr. Baker. On that basis, I am putting to you that he rejects what you say about him, but you would nonetheless maintain that what you've said is correct. Is that right?
I regard my oath as very serious, and yes, I do.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Lawler.
I only have a few questions, Diane. Do you identify yourself as a person of Aboriginal descent?
Yes, I do.
Were there many Aboriginal children at Neerkol?
Probably percentage-wise, it would have been about 75 to 80%.
Did the Aboriginal children receive any different treatment to the others that you can recall?
Yes. There was one occasion that I can recall it when I went back there. I was very brown, black, and I was scrubbed with a scrubbing brush one of the girls was ordered to scrub me to get me clean, and she was very gentle and didn't want to hurt me. So once the redness had subsided, Sister Frances Regis saw that I was still dirty, so she got the scrubbing brush, and I still have scars on my back today from that, because it was really hard and it was like somebody cutting me with a knife. So yes, and it happened to the boys too.
Are you aware of it happening to other children?
Yes. I only learnt just the other day that it happened in the boys' dormitory. So same with the Aboriginal boys.
Okay, thank you. Now, in your statement at paragraph 14, you mentioned that you ran away.
Twice did.
Can you explain what actually happened, how old you were and that kind of thing, where you went?
Well, I ran away with another girl, and somebody helped us get out of the dormitory who was looking after us at the time, because it was locked, so we couldn't get out. So, and we got as far as a farm. I can't remember how far we went, and Father Reginald Durham came and picked us up and brought us back to Neerkol, and Regis Durham said that we were not going to be punished again, people in authority. And we were beaten, we were punished.
Do you know roughly how old you were?
I was about 10 or 11, I think. Approximately, around about that age.
Thank you. Now, paragraph 15 of your statement, you mentioned that you broke your collarbone and it went untreated. Can you tell me how you broke your collarbone?
Yes, we were doing judo, and of course I stuck my head out too far and I was supposed to tuck it in, so I broke my collarbone. And
when did you receive treatment for that?
The next afternoon, a car, because they had one car and a bus there, and I was taken into the hospital in Rockhampton, General Hospital, in the afternoon the next day.
Thank you. Now, paragraph 26 of your statement, you mentioned that I'll just turn to it. Your first disclosure was a policeman who was well known to your family. Do you know who he was?
No, I can't recall. I know he's a police sergeant because he had the stripes on, but and I was told he was a sergeant anyway, so no, I can't recall his name.
And for the sake of completeness, when you went into Mackay Police Station, do you remember who the police officer was who you reported it to?
No, I just went to the desk, who was ever on that day.
And was there another occasion when you sought to report it to the police?
I actually, no, it's not in my statement, can I say that?
Yes.
I actually reported at Townsville. I was studying up in Townsville. And I walked in and, I was doing a thing for the men's movement at the time. We had a project that If a woman went in and said she was suffered domestic violence, what help did you get? And the men, when they walked in, what help they got? And of course, they got hardly anything. But and I told them then. The policeman, the person on the desk.
Right.
I presumed it was a policeman. It wasn't. It was a person on the desk.
And for the sake of completeness, do you know who that person was?
No, I can't recall.
I have no further questions.
Thanks, Mr. Lloyd. Any re-examination, Ms. David? Ms. Carpenter, just a couple of matters before we excuse you, and touching upon your evidence with respect to your various approaches to the police. Paragraph 29, you give evidence to the Commission and say when you were about 17, you decided to report what Father Hayes had done to you to the police. It might be difficult now, but are you able to assist us to understand what it was that caused you to make that decision?
What prompted me? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I was nursing at the time. I just started nursing at the Mackay Base Hospital, and I'd had several abuse people come in, and it just triggered something in me. And
Patients came.
And I was like first in line with them, like to help them with the doctors and that. And I just think it just twigged something in me that, with my own experience.
And then at paragraph 31, you give evidence to us that around the time of the Ford inquiry, somebody told you that Father Hayes was still working with children, and you go on to say you approached then the Queensland Police again.
Yes.
In fact, the task force that was set up.
Yes, because I didn't think, I didn't have much to do with Hayes after, many years. And I didn't think, I thought more complaints would have come out about him, and I didn't think he'd be still working with children. Especially Aboriginal children.
So are we right to assume that it was that knowledge
Yes.
that caused you to proceed at that time, despite your evidence with respect to your earlier efforts?
Yes, I just felt as though I needed to, be finally heard. That previously I hadn't been heard, and it was frustrating. And I thought, I have to do something about this because this man is still with kids. And, yeah.
And indeed, if we've understood you correctly, at that time you indeed had your own children?
Yes, my son was killed suddenly.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
And you've also given us evidence about, despite the best efforts of the police member who was assisting you to make your statement, that you would have felt more comfortable having been able to speak to a woman, a female police member at that time.
Yes, at that time, yeah.
Were you able to give, did you feel able to give that indication to the police at the time, to make a request for a female member?
I did say to David Diane that I'd prefer to speak to a female, but there was nobody on at the time.
Available.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
I thought it's now or never, so I did it.
Anything arising out of that for anyone? Ms. Carpenter, thank you for your attendance at the Royal Commission. You're now otherwise excused.
Thank you.
Call Mr. AYN.
Mr. AYN, do you wish to take the oath or the affirmation for the purposes of giving your evidence? You take the oath. Would you mind just standing for a moment, please, taking the Bible in your right hand and repeating after me, I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give in this Royal Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. If you just replace the Bible and take a seat again, please.
Mr. Awa have provided a statement to the Royal Commission dated the 24th of March 2015. And prior to coming into the hearing room, you've had a person read that statement to you.
Yes.
And it's correct to the best of your recollection.
It is.
And as I understand it, you would like me as counsel assisting to read that statement to the public hearing. And I'll do that now. This statement made by me accurately sets out the evidence that I'm prepared to give to the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse. The statement is true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. In preparing this statement, I have been shown certain documents relating to my abuse at St Joseph's Orphanage, Neerkol. Where I refer to a document in this statement, I have used the document reference number which appears in the top right-hand corner of the document to which I refer. I have not independently reviewed the St Joseph's Orphanage Neerkol documents from which these documents have been drawn. Where direct speech is referred to in this statement, it is provided in words or words to the effect of those which were used to the best of my recollection. The statement has been prepared on the basis of mercy was waiting for us on the steps. She came down and took off us what little clothing we had brought to the orphanage. As I was standing there, she noticed a ring on my finger with a red stone in it. She said to me, "That's a nice ring. Can I have a look at it?" The ring was a gift from my mother. She took it off me and kept it. I never saw the ring again. I was then separated from my siblings and we were put into different dormitories. My siblings and I were not allowed to mix together, so I hardly saw them, not even at school. Every now and then, my father came to visit us. This was the only time I ever saw my brothers. I missed them, but got on with it. I just had to live my life. Our school was attached to Neerkol. Every day, the nuns would take us into the classrooms and give us lessons. I was labelled a dunce. The sisters moved me to the front of the class. By grade 2, they realised they just could not teach me. Instead, they would belt me and knock me around with the other dancers. I am left-handed. This was not tolerated by the nuns. They would force me to use my right hand, but I could not write with my right hand. So I tried to use my left hand as much as possible. Every time they caught me, the nuns would belt me over the hand and knuckles. On one occasion, they broke the knuckles in my left hand, making it impossible to write. The nuns were savage and brutal to us. How can you learn anything when you are being beaten all the time? By the time I was 12 years old, the nuns gave up completely on trying to teach me. Instead, I was made to sit outside on the veranda and would make baskets. They just put me out there and left me there. The sisters would sell the baskets to raise money for the school or would use them to throw rubbish in. Around the same time, 2 of the nuns hit me numerous times around my legs and penis with sticks or rulers. They would tell us that our penis was the devil, that it was wicked and that it was evil. At the age of 12, I ended up being hospitalised and was alternately circumcised. I did not know at the time what being circumcised was, so I did not even know what was happening. The sisters just took me to the hospital without telling me why. After I came out of hospital, I had to care for myself. The nuns were no help. For months I had scabs and I had to put up with it all. There was no help and no extra treatment. When I was about 13 and a half, they made me work around the farm at Neerkol. I was sent out around the property at Neerkol with some of the older boys to ring bark trees. That was the end of my schooling. I did not attend school after that time. When I was about 16, I went to Westbrook with another boy. I had no criminal record, and they gave me no reason why I was sent there. They told us that we were going to a nice farm where we could earn money. Neerkol was bad, absolutely shocking, but Westbrook was even worse. I was physically and sexually abused there. When I was about 17, I ran away from Westbrook and I was sent to Boggo Road Jail. The jail was like a palace compared to Neerkol and Westbrook. They fed me properly and I could sleep. Sexual abuse by Kevin Baker. Whilst I was a resident at Neerkol, I remember Kevin Baker was a member of staff. He was also a former resident of Neerkol. He was allowed to do whatever he wanted and he had the nuns' permission. He had free run of the place. There were no boundaries for him. During my time at Neerkol, I was sexually abused by Baker. It makes me uncomfortable to talk about the details. The things that happened to me make me feel disgusted. Reporting of the abuse. I couldn't tell anyone at Neerkol what had happened. I had no one to tell because I had been stripped of my family and I had no friends. I was a bit of a loner. I felt like no one would believe me anyway. A few times I told Father Anderson what was happening when I went to confession. He gave me my penance, but nothing else was done. A bit later I tried to tell one of the nuns, but again nothing was done. I didn't really try and tell anyone else. The Neerkol Action Support Group. I was a part of the Neerkol Action Support Group. I had seen them on television and got in touch. They were trying to get all the former residents together to approach the Sisters of Mercy for assistance. My correspondence with the sisters went through Mary Adams, who was the secretary of the Neerkol Action Support Group. She just took care of it for me. I didn't really have a problem with the system, it just got done. I had heard from other ex-residents about comments made by Bishop Brian Heenan, who was the Bishop of Rockhampton. He described us as liars and denied everything that had happened at Neerkol. This made me really angry. It was really hurtful and made me sick to my stomach. Around September 1997, I received an apology from Sister Rowan, who was the head of the Sisters of Mercy Rockhampton. I did not feel that it was enough. I wanted a personal apology from the sisters who were at Neerkol while I was there. On the 30th of September 1997, I sent a letter to the sisters requesting that I meet with particular sisters who had physically abused me. Around February 1998, Sister Diane Rowan contacted me about my request to meet with the nuns from Neerkol. She told me that unfortunately some of the sisters were deceased. However, the ones that were alive would be willing to meet with me. She referred me to the Dispute Resolution Branch of the Queensland Department of Justice, as they would be helping me with the meetings. I'm not sure why, but the meeting never eventuated. In about July 1997, Mary Adams, who was the secretary for the committee, sent a letter to all the members of the Neerkol Action Support Group. It asked us to vote as to whether the Neerkol Action Support Group should continue. I voted for the group to continue. Unfortunately, it was eventually shut down. Settlement of a civil claim against the Diocese and the Sisters of Mercy. Through the Neerkol Action Support Group, a civil claim was commenced against the Diocese of Rockhampton, the Sisters, and State Government. I was a part of this claim. I felt pressured by the lawyers and others to settle my claim. Initially, I was offered $12,500 to settle my claim. I felt offended and hurt at this amount. I called the sisters to discuss why I had been offered so little. I thought this amount was disgusting for the damage that the sisters had inflicted on me. After our discussions, I believe that Sister Rowan instructed her solicitor to increase the amount offered to $22,500. But I did not want to take the money. I felt pressured by the other former residents. They told me there was nothing I could do about getting any more. My children in particular tried to convince me to settle and accept the money. I was eventually pressured into accepting this amount offered. The Sisters of Mercy. I have never forgiven the sisters for taking my mother's ring off me when I arrived at Neerkol. The ring was the only memento I had of my mother, and it was given to me for my birthday. I have no photos of her or of my childhood. Around March 1998, I called Sister Rowan to ask her to try and find the ring for me. She sent me a letter explaining that she had asked some of the sisters who were once at Neerkol, but it was not possible to locate any property that was confiscated from the children. Instead, on the 7th of April 1998, Sister Rowan sent me a letter which included photocopies of photos printed on A4 paper of Neerkol. Whilst these were not a substitute for my lost ring, Sister Rowan hoped that I would value these photos. The pictures were distorted and did not include any images of me. I think I threw them in the bin. On or about the 28th of July 1998, I received a letter from Sister Rowan. She told me that she had made further inquiries about the ring my mother had given me, but was unable to locate it. However, Sister Rowan did say that she had more photos that she would be able to give me when we met in Brisbane. Around May 1999, Sister Rowan also made an application on my behalf to the Professional Standards Office for payment of $2,000. Sister Rowan told me that this money was for me and my son to travel to Rockhampton. I wanted to take my son and show him Neerkol so that he could see where I grew up. As I had no photos of my time at Neerkol, I requested the bell as a memento. The bell was special to me. It would let us know about meal and mass times, as well as when we had to assemble together. I asked Sister Rowan if I would be able to have the bell, and at first she agreed, but then later told me that I couldn't have it because it had been promised to someone else. This was very hurtful for me, and I felt Sister Rowan had let me down. I have been shown a letter by the Royal Commission from Sister Rowan dated the 11th of July 2001. In this letter, Sister Rowan confirmed that I was not able to have the bell. Sister Rowan said that she and Philip Bowman, who was the director at the Mercy Administration Centre, would be more than happy to take me out to the Neerkol site next time I was in Rockhampton. Although this letter is addressed to me, I never received it and I have never seen it before. The only time I was told by Sister Rowan that I couldn't have the bell was when my son and I later met with her in Rockhampton. On the 2nd of October 2001, my son and I met with Sister Rowan and Mr. Bowman. They took us out to Neerkol to have a look around the site. I was really looking forward to it and showing my son where I grew up. However, it was not what I had hoped for. I left with a feeling of dissatisfaction, as if I had not done everything I wanted to do. When we met with Sister Rowan again later, she presented me with a picture of Neerkol, which she had signed on the back. The sisters have continued to assist me in numerous other ways, such as sending me the photographs of Neerkol. Although the sisters promised me assistance with my medical bills, this has not happened. My shoulder was also broken whilst I was at Neerkol. I broke my shoulder initially while working at a nearby farm. Then about 4 months later, I broke it again, getting off the back of a truck at Neerkol. At the time, I did not receive any medical treatment for the injuries. I requested the sisters to pay for my shoulder surgery, but they declined and instead helped me to purchase a new mattress so I could sleep more comfortably on my bad shoulders. Ford Inquiry. Around 1998, the Queensland Government established the Ford Inquiry. I was registered to give evidence and was called to come forward to the inquiry. I had high expectations that I could come and give evidence about what happened. Ultimately, I was very unhappy with the process. The evidence that I was allowed to give was very restricted. I wasn't able to talk about the things that I thought were important. It felt like I could only talk about what they wanted to hear and nothing else. Queensland Redress Scheme. Towards the end of 2007, I applied to the Queensland Redress Scheme. Around February 2008, I was contacted by the Department of Communities in Queensland. They advised me that I was eligible for a Level 1 payment through the redress scheme. This was an amount of $7,000. I again felt pressured to accept the money. I have always wanted my day in court. I had a case going against the government at the time the redress payment was offered. This case went on for 10 to 12 years, and the judge at the time, Justice White, had decided that I had a case against the government. I decided to drop the civil case because my solicitor had written a settlement agreement that the compensation I would have received was to go into the public trust. After I dropped the case, I accepted the redress payment. The government also told me that if I accepted the money, then I couldn't continue the case. I wasn't happy at all with the whole process, but my health was wearing me down. I ultimately accepted the money. Before I received the redress money, I was told by the Medicare that I had to pay $16,000 of that money to them for my psychiatric treatment I was receiving. I went and saw my psychiatrist at the time and told him about this. He told me he would sort it out He later got back to me and told me that it would only be $4,000. Medicare then took this $4,000 from my redress payment before I received it. Impact of the abuse. I stopped school when I was 12 years old, and since that time I have had difficulties reading and writing. More recently, I found a school report. It described my schooling as below a grade 2 standard. I now know you have to learn quickly to work things out for yourself. I feel that my childhood was taken away from me. I lack confidence and have difficulties interacting with other people. I have panic attacks and have been on medication for most of my life. I have lived with depression and anxiety and lived many years isolated in the bush. I didn't like mixing with the rest of society. I have never married. I have had several female partners, but the relationships were difficult to maintain long term. I haven't been able to sleep well due to my shoulder and the memories from Neerkol. The effects stay with you for a lifetime. I would like to receive more compensation for what happened to me at Neerkol and the damage to my life. I have no life skills. I feel I am not wanted and I have no family. I never went to the funerals of my two brothers because I do not really know them. The reason I do not know them is because of the separation at Neerkol. I feel that Neerkol took away my family. Is there anything further that you would like to say in addition to what has been read out from your statement? Anything you'd like to say about to the Royal Commission about the impact of Neerkol on you and what you would like to see come out of this Royal Commission?
I'd like to see someone else put through what I went through, or any other child in those orphanages like that.
Can I ask you a couple of questions that come out of your statement? You talk in your statement about sexual abuse inflicted upon you by Mr. Baker. Did you provide a statement to the police in respect of those matters?
So I did.
And after you provided a statement to the police, did you ever go to court in respect to that statement?
I never did. I also gave a statement towards supporting what had happened in Neerkol concerning what Kevin Baker was allowed to run amok with the girls and others in there. What he was doing to them, the girls and that I observed.
Do you recall ever being spoken to by the police or by persons from the prosecution as to why you didn't go to court?
Never. Myself and my son came from my second oldest,
reasons not to have the shoulder reconstruction?
Sorry, yes. I found that I might pull through.
And did the sisters provide you with some other assistance in respect of your shoulder?
Well, they did. They gave me a bed. They did buy a bed, yeah. And a gym set. And that has helped a little, not a great deal. I wake most of the night from pain in my shoulders. So I'm turning over all night, taking painkillers.
Is that an ongoing concern for you?
Ongoing.
If I can just briefly return to the court processes and the proceedings in respect of Mr. Baker. Looking back now, would there have been anything that could have been done to have made it easier for you in providing a statement about Mr. Baker?
No, I don't know what you mean, sort of.
Would there be any type of assistance that you can think of now that would have made it easier for you in dealing with providing that
I think
statement?
I could have got, yeah, someone could have helped me, assisted me, yeah.
And what type of assistance would have helped you?
Well, because of my education, you know, it sort of helped me along those lines, really.
Were you able to talk to the police about the sexual abuse?
I talked about mainly about what I seen Kevin Baker doing to the girls. It was mainly along those lines because he had freehold of the orphanage and could walk and do anything, go down to the recreation room. He had girls down in the yardman quarters down there. Kitchen, storeroom. I seen what he did there, sort of putting his hands into girls' dresses.
But were you able to talk to the police about the sexual abuse he inflicted on you?
I felt, you know, ashamed, you know, I sort of felt.
And looking back now, can you think of any assistance that would have helped you in talking about that sexual abuse to the police or anyone else?
If I had some assistance, yeah.
And what would have helped you in that regard?
I feel like a support person, like if I had a support person there with me.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
No, thank you, Your Honour.
No questions. Anyone on the middle bar table? No. Yes, Mr. Callaghan, and I'll come back to Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. AYN, my name is Callaghan. I appear on behalf of Mr. Baker, who you've been speaking about. You've just been asked some questions by counsel assisting about when you were dealing with, I presume it was the police, in giving statements about Mr. Baker, is that right? And you were asked questions about whether you could have had more support to assist them. You just asked those questions a moment ago? Yes? Can I just ask you, in preparation for your appearance here today, have you even been shown statements that you made previously in that period?
Yes.
You were shown those, what, by counsel assisting? In the course of conferences with her?
Yes.
I see. And did that refresh your memory of the process of giving statements to police?
Well, that didn't refresh my mind of giving statements to the police because it was to do with my own statement that I was shown.
That's what I'm asking, whether you were shown. Did you give statements to the police back in the late 90s?
I believe I did, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen those recently?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. That's all I was asking. Thank you. No. Now, you've spoken about Mr. Baker in your evidence about things that you say that you saw him do and things that you say he did to you. You've said that this morning. You understand on his behalf I put it to you that nothing of the kind ever happened, but I take it you would maintain that it did. Is that right?
Yes, it did happen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. Ayn, for the benefit of the other lawyers here, I'm your solicitor. Mr. Ayn, I want to take you to the year 1960. Does that year stand out in your mind as particularly memorable?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Where does that year fit into the time that you spent at Neerkol?
It was a time that I was sent back to Neerkol from a farm after being whipped early in the year by Eric Willis, who had the farm.
Yes, and you spent a number of years at Neerkol, yeah?
Yeah, about 8 years, I think I spent it.
And 1960, was that at the start or the end?
I think it was in the beginning somewhere.
1960?
Yeah.
Might you be mistaken on that? The year 1960, I believe in your statement you referred to that as the last year you spent at Neerkol.
It is, yeah.
1960 is the last year you spent at Neerkol? You just mentioned a time that you spent at a farm. When you returned to Neerkol in 1960, do you remember, was that at the start, the middle, or the end of 1960?
In the start.
It was at the start. And you have referred in paragraph 25 of your statement, you have mentioned sexual abuse by Kevin Baker.
Correct.
Did that occur before or after you returned to Neerkol in 1960, or both?
Both.
Both. You mentioned in your statement at paragraph 27 that you complained a few times to Father Anderson of this abuse by Baker. Did that occur before you returned in 1960 or after?
Returned after.
It occurred after.
Yeah.
And how many times did you complain to Father Anderson?
I think it was 3 times. I'm not sure.
3 times? 3 times over what time period?
Oh, it was a few months.
A few months. Did you complain to anybody else?
Spoke to Mother Claire.
Mother-
Mother Claire, the superior.
Okay. Okay. In paragraph 21 of your statement, you refer to being sent to Westbrook. When did that occur in relation to the first time you complained to Father Anderson? What time period was between that?
There was a few months.
Okay.
Yeah, a few months.
And what was Westbrook?
It had a couple of names. It was classed as a farm home for boys and a detention centre.
Detention centre.
Another name was classed as, yeah. It was a place where they sent children that had committed criminal offences by judges.
And had you committed any criminal offence?
No.
Had you been before the court? Okay. How did you get to Westbrook?
The officer, Holbeck, Children's Services Officer, took myself and another child by train. We travelled by train. And we went to a place called, I believe, like Roma Street. I didn't know at the time it was Roma. Many years later I found it was Roma Street.
And who did you meet at Roma Street train station?
We were told to stand, myself and the other boy, to stand and wait, and then two police officers came over and Holbeck just walked away, said nothing.
What did you think when you saw the police officers?
Well, first of all, I thought, something strange going on here. There must be a flood, or there must be some reason why the police are there, to take us to this farm. There must be something going on.
And where did they take you?
It was to a place called it was outside Toowoomba, it was, where the police car couldn't travel any further. It only could to Marburg, I think it was Marburg. I only learned that name later on in life too, Marburg, and I was transferred to another police car and then taken out to the farm. And all the way, even when I got to the farm, I sort of didn't understand why the police, other than there was floods or something, their purpose was to take us.
And what were you expecting? What were you expecting the place that you were going to be?
It was supposed to be a farm. Mother Claire told us we were going to a farm to work and earn money.
Who told you that?
Mother Claire.
Mother Claire of Neerkol?
Yeah, from Neerkol, Superior. Yeah.
And how did you feel when you got to Westbrook?
Well, I went through the gates and I looked and I seen all these kids. There was quite a large amount of, like they were taller than what I was. I was still under the belief that I was on a farm to earn money, work and earn.
So it wasn't the place you expected it to be?
Then, yeah.
Could I ask that the witness be shown document 6 of the tender bundle? Or perhaps placed on the viewfinder? The AYN, can you see that document?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen this document before today?
Yes.
When did you first see this document?
Seen it sometime after when I had received I was told I could receive a Freedom of Information file, and this was shown to me by my ex-partner because my reading ability was shown to me by her, and I couldn't believe it. What I've seen on it.
What do you understand this document to be?
Well, an admission to farm home for boys, a detention centre.
To a detention centre. And for the record, I'll pause to note that the fields for offence and the sentence relevant to my client are in fact blank. Mr. AYN, were you ever told by anyone at Neerkol why you were being transferred to Westbrook?
No.
Were you ever told by anyone at Westbrook why you were in fact there?
No. No.
Why do you believe that you were transferred to Westbrook?
Because I went to confession. And Father Renison, that what Baker was doing.
That what, sorry?
What Baker was doing to the girls and what he did to me.
Okay. Just very briefly, how were you treated at Westbrook?
Well, on my arrival there, I was told to approach the bench, or the desk there, and Gollich, the superintendent there, came up behind me and belted me in the back of the head and sent me into the desk. And then told me to go outside and Neerkol.
Did you experience any abuse of a sexual nature at Westbrook?
I did.
How long were you at Westbrook?
I don't know. Probably about 10 days.
And why did you eventually leave Westbrook?
Because the sexual abuse that happened in the shower, I wouldn't go and have a shower after that. And I ended up running away in one of the big mass breaks. I ended up being charged, and the judge wanted to know what an innocent boy was doing in Westbrook. And I said to release him.
And were you released?
I was put back into Westbrook.
You were put back where?
Into Westbrook.
Into
I was
Westbrook.
put on a good behaviour bond,
And then,
which I didn't understand, but later on found out.
and when did you then come to eventually leave Westbrook for the last time?
Well, I escaped from the big mass breaks again, and there was the Swartons inquiry after that.
Where were you taken when you escaped?
24 of us were taken and dumped in Boggarrow jail.
Okay.
I ended up doing 18 months jail.
So just to recap your evidence, you were sexually abused at Neerkol. You complained of that.
It was the sexual abuse that happened by the nuns was far worse than, well, it was a thing that you should never have happened, because it had a big impact on my life. After that, I started suffering with panic attacks. And all my life I've been on medication. Even to come here this morning, I've had to take 7 Valiums. So try and hold me over.
And you feel that this relates to the experiences that you had during these years that we're talking of?
Beg your pardon?
You feel that the medication that you need to take now and the medical conditions you experience relate to the time that you had at Neerkol and then Westbrook?
In Neerkol. They started in Neerkol. And it should never have happened. I should never have been, like, no one has the right to hold a child on the penis. And
Mr.
no one
Awain,
has the right to.
taking you to another topic, forward to 1998, do you recall requesting a meeting with the former Neerkol nuns?
Yes.
How many former Neerkol nuns did you request a meeting with?
Well, about 5, 6 of them.
Did ever such a meeting happen?
One meeting did with
Who was at that meeting?
Diane was there. Myself, my ex-partner, my son's mother, and another nun by the name of Pius.
And did you know the nun Pius prior to that meeting?
Well, there was a Pius, but I didn't sort of recognise that one really.
Where did you know her from previously, or
From Neerkol.
from Neerkol?
Yeah.
Did you feel that anything was gained from that meeting?
No, not a thing. Not a thing, I mean.
Nevertheless, did you still wish to meet with the other nuns that you'd requested?
I did.
Did you ever meet with any of those nuns?
No, none of them.
Were you ever told of a decision that no such meetings would occur?
No, I was never.
And Mr. Awayan, just one final point. Your statement doesn't go into too much detail of the abuse, and particularly sexual abuse, that you experienced. Are you able to say why that is?
Say that again.
Your statement doesn't go into too much detail as to the abuse, in particular sexual abuse, that you experienced?
Well, I don't really like talking about it because I feel I'm a man, and to have that done to me, it's sort of disgusting, very disgusting.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Excuse me, Your Honour. There were a couple of issues in that re-examination upon which I'd like to seek instructions before I seek leave to ask any questions.
Oh, all right. Well, perhaps we'll take the mid-morning break now. So, and there's just a couple of other matters that the commissioners would like to raise with you too, AYN. So we've reached the point at which we'll take the mid-morning break now. You won't, Paul. We can excuse you.
Silence.